So, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, and valued participants, a very warm welcome to you all. My name is Richard Kennedy. I'm a serial entrepreneur who started and still operates businesses in both the UK and Dubai. And I was lucky enough to call Dubai my permanent home for over 70 years. 7 years, sorry, not 70 years. I'm not that old. I will be your host for today. On behalf of Dubai Chambers, it is my honor and privilege to open today's webinar, Business Resilience in Times of Disruption. We gather today at a moment of profound consequence. The world has for some years now been navigating a landscape of escalating complexity, where disruption is no longer an exception, but a defining condition of commerce itself. And to understand where we stand today, we must first reflect on how we've arrived here. The closing decades of the 20th century reshaped the architecture of global trade. We had the oil crises of the 1970s, the collapse of the Soviet Union and rapid expansion of globalization throughout the 90s, the September 11th attacks of 2001, the global financial crisis of 2008. Then came the COVID-19 pandemic, a disruption of a magnitude that no business continuity plan had ever truly prepared for. And then, of course, the most recently, the current geopolitical situation in the Gulf. And the question is not whether disruption will come, it will. The question is whether your organization is ready. And that's why we're here today. The UAE has time and time again demonstrated an extraordinary capacity for calm, strategic, and forward-looking leadership in the face of regional and global turmoil. When others retreated, the UAE doubled down on investment in infrastructure, in governance, in innovation, and in its people. When borders closed across the world, Dubai remained a symbol of continuity, a place where business could still be done, where connections could still be made, and where trust in institutions held firm. Under the visionary leadership of its wise government, the UAE has responded to every wave of disruption, not with fear, but with purpose. It has deepened its economic diversification, expanded its diplomatic and commercial relationships across every continent, and reinforced its position as one of the most stable and competitive business environments on Earth. Today, amid tensions causing concern across the wider region, the UAE stands as a beacon of stability, openness, and opportunity, a trusted and steadfast partner for the international business community. Dubai Chambers is a living expression of that commitment, a platform dedicated to connecting, protecting, and empowering businesses here in Dubai and across the world. And it is in that spirit that we convene here today. This webinar has been designed with one purpose in mind: to equip you as business leaders, strategists, operators, and decision makers with the insights, the frameworks, and the practical approaches necessary to not merely survive disruption, but to lead through it with confidence and excellence. Before we start, I would like to introduce Shaker Al-Bishri, the Senior Manager, Business Awards at Dubai Chambers, to say a few words.
Thank you, Richard. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us in today's session. They say the only thing predictable about disruption is that it's never convenient. If a crisis waited for the right timing, I think we would all be much better prepared. But in reality, disruption is part of today's business landscape, and resilience is what sets leading organizations apart. It is a pleasure to welcome you to this webinar on business resilience in times of disruption. Today is not just about managing challenges, but about rethinking how we lead, adapt, and grow stronger through them. Here in Dubai, we are fortunate to be part of an ecosystem that consistently demonstrates agility, vision, and the ability to turn challenges into opportunities, setting a powerful example for business across sectors. I hope today's session inspire you with practice insight and a fresh perspective to strengthen your organization, resilience, and sustain excellence, no matter the circumstances. Thank you for joining us and wish you a truly engaging and impactful session. Thank you very much. Thank you, Richard. And you can start.
Thank you so much, Sheikha. Over the course of the next 90 minutes or so, we will be exploring how to build resilience against the modern hybrid threats that define our era, how to navigate turbulence in global supply chains, markets, and operations, and how to transform uncertainty into strategic opportunity. These are not abstract concepts. They are the lived realities of organizations operating at the highest levels today. At the end of today's session, we'll be sharing a QR code asking for your feedback. All participants who wish to receive a certificate of attendance upon the conclusion of today's session, please complete the survey for a formal recognition of your commitment to professional development and organizational excellence. If you do have any questions today, please use the question and answer feature here in Zoom, and we will do our best to answer. Throughout today, if we don't get round to your question, we will endeavour to answer it after the session in our follow-up. So without further ado, let's start with our first speaker, who brings to this forum a lifetime of distinguished service at the very frontier of business resilience. Margaret J. Millett is the CEO and founder of Seamless Horizon Incorporated and holds the prestigious Fellow of the Business Continuity Institute designation. She is the recipient of the 2023 BCI Lifetime Achievement Award, the highest honour in her field, and has advised organisations ranging from Fortune 300 corporations in financial services and technology to the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. Currently serves on the Executive Council of the Disaster Recovery Journal and has spoken at resilience conferences spanning North America, Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. Her session this morning will address the evolving landscape of hybrid threats and complex disruptions. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Margaret J. Millett.
Thank you, Richard. And I'd also like to say thank you to the Dubai Chambers for inviting me to participate today. I've had the pleasure of being in the UAE, and I was last there in January of 2025. And the progress I had seen since I had previously been there 16 years ago was amazing. But we're here also to talk about me sharing some of the perspectives I've seen in my career about business continuity, business resilience, and the importance of it. I've been doing this for a long time, and hence my ability to receive the BCI Lifetime Achievement Award. And what I want to share with you is we can all say probably that things are moving at a much faster rate in this day and age. We now know that disruptions are not just here and there, they are going to be much more constant. I listen to the news every morning and throughout the course of the day, but mainly in the morning. And I'm amazed when I hear about things that are happening, whether it be food product recalls or other things that are happening around the globe and things that are forthcoming. You know, hurricane season is going to be starting here in the United States, basically starting in May, which is at the end of this week. So we have to be prepared. It's not something that's like, oh, well, I don't need to worry about it. We also know in this day and age that they are getting much more complex. And therefore, how do we make sure that we are continuing to provide goods and services, answer phone calls, and make sure that we are able to meet the needs of our customers? Because the other thing that we know, customers want things in real time. The day and age of, well, we'll get back to you next week is really not what customers want to hear. They still want to know that they're going to be able to go into shops and get things, that they're going to have somebody to pick up the phone and answer the call, get the answers that they need, and move on with maybe buying a new house or something like that. Make sure that you're thinking about that because, again, you want to make sure that you're continuing to service people and not skip a beat. Oftentimes, leadership will think, like, I don't need to worry about resiliency. However, I can tell you that it is a business necessity. I have worked in this industry and I have worked for organizations, even like at Uber. People would think, oh, it's a transportation service. But I can tell you, organizations that want to sign and say that they're collaborating with Uber want to know that Uber has resiliency. And therefore, I can tell you, in order to ensure that new organizations were signing on with Uber, I had to tell them about our state of resiliency so they felt comfortable being able to sign on that dotted line with that contract for Uber. Therefore, it is a business value add to be able to tell people that you have it, whether it's signing a major company or just the average individual that wants to go do business with you, to have something on your company website to say that you are going to be there for them and that you have that resilience capability. We know that today, if something happens, it's going to be hitting our phones in a blink of an eye. And therefore, we need to make sure that we understand how to respond to those incidents. They're going to happen at a much more faster rate, as I said. There are going to be a lot of uncertainty as to what is happening. Who is the source of truth? That's the other thing that we can find in today's day and age of what's right, what's wrong, who's the source, and what's really accurate and what's unfolding. And we also know that things are getting much more complex and much more varied and how they are impacting our organizations. Therefore, it is very imperative that organizations are prepared and know how to respond to multiple types of threats that could be actually impacting their organization. And we want to make sure that we're going to be looking at all of these things and having the right communication plan, because they're communications is not what it used to be. There are many modes of communication. There is the board, there are your shareholders, there are your customers, and then also just making sure that your employees understand everything. And then, if you're running a global organization, making sure that you're watching the communications around the globe. Because we all know business continuity doesn't happen Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We need to make sure that we're able to respond all times of day and any day of the week so that we are prepared to meet the needs of our shareholders, clients, and customers and our boards. With these complex situations that are increasing, it's not just business continuity. In order to make sure that you are protecting your organization, there needs to be that strong allegiance with your cybersecurity team. Because when something happens and there's word out that your organization has been impacted, that's when the bad actors like to get out and start and say what they can also do to your organization to see how they can infiltrate and maybe cause even more damage, because you're actually already known to the world that you are being vulnerable. So, how do you then take that equation of taking cybersecurity, looking at your operations to make sure that they're going to be sound and still continuing to operate and not have an impact to your reputation? Because again, you want to make sure that you're continuing to delight people throughout everything and not have an impact to your bottom line at your company. That you want to make sure that you're still succeeding so that you're going to have your revenue flowing during the time of a disruption. And that's also something that's really critical to make sure that you have in business resiliency, that you are having somebody keep an eye on your financials, because you could actually be spending a lot of money depending on what impact you are trying to deal with. And you could be able to be sustaining not providing goods and services as normal. And that could be interrupting the cash flow for your organization. So that's why it's also very important to be keeping an eye on these things, because we want to make sure that your organization doesn't have to close the doors. We've seen this, whether it be a large organization or a small organization, that when disruptions occur, it can really be detrimental. They might recover today, but then are they going to be able to keep the doors open 3 months from today or a year from today? Or will there be major layoffs at that organization, cutbacks, no bonuses, those types of things? And that's why it's really important to ensure that when events are taking place, that somebody's keeping an eye on all of this. And there is the coordination between many areas within the organization and making sure that everyone is connected and understanding how we need to work together at an organization, because it's not just the business continuity team's problem. It's not just the cybersecurity's team. We need to come together in an or as an organization to ensure that we are moving forward for the best interest of the organization. Now, the other thing is there are ways to try and detect things, but Also, we know that sometimes Mother Nature can just hit us. She's not always very good at giving us a warning, and we might not know about the people who want to do harm to our organizations. And therefore, we have to try and figure out all the ways that we can figure out how to detect what might be happening at our organizations. The other thing we need to look at is, for example, we all know that there are things happening in the Middle East right now, and therefore we need to, go back and always look at things. We need to realize that things can happen. In 2021, there was the Suez Canal example that gave, again, the spotlight to the Middle East. But we also know that there are things that are happening every day in the UAE that are taking place that we need to make sure the organizations are going to keep their lights on. When we look at things, we know that anything that's happening can then start to impact things that are local. So we want to also just make sure when we are working with organizations that they are looking at how things can impact them. And I also tell people we have to look at the globe. Just because something might not have happened in the UAE, what's happened elsewhere? What do we need to be taking a look at? Because I always tell people look at what's happened around the globe and realize that could happen to you. When we have people who talk about things that couldn't happen to them, I just say, that's maybe something that we don't want to be saying because you never know what tomorrow brings. Start and look at what's happening, whether it's your industry, your competitors, the region in which you live in, what is happening and how could that be impacting you. Learn from what's happened to others so you can actually make your organization stronger so that you're going to be able to not skip a beat when something happens to your company. So think about how local things have happened in the past, what's happening today, and maybe go to determine what's the next best thing that's going to be happening that you might want to get your organization prepared for so that you're going to be able to get through it and make sure that you're going to be resilient. And remember, it's not going to impact just one sector of the area in which you live in. This is going to impact multiple sectors. So, how is it that you're going to be able to continue to provide your goods and services if the vendors that you rely on are also impacted and the vendors that they rely on to service you? So, it's not just you. We all rely on many, many organizations to keep the lights on at the companies that we work at, whether your company is large or small. All right. We can say that in the past, business resiliency had blinders on a little bit. Okay. We built our plans to help support things. I always have said, been asked, like, what are we planning for? And I always say, whatever you envision the worst case scenario, because we don't have a particular plan to how to deal with, say, a sandstorm or customer service outage or this outage or that outage. Your plan needs to make sure that it can encompass anything. Where before we would just plan for, say, hurricane season, and therefore that was what we were looking for. We thought about what the models were, and then we would just build towards these things. And we did not always have all the right players at our simulations. And therefore, as an organization, we need to be looking at everybody who might need to help respond during an event and have them participate in understanding what that means to them. And therefore, we need to break that chain of how we used to do things and start that forward looking look at embracing operational resilience at your organization. So, what we want to do is think about ways that we can move to think about what are the things that could be happening and how we can look at being much more proactive and thinking about what could happen. And also, really trying to stretch the flexibility and how we're going to do that and always be adapting. I think it's also very important to figure out how you're monitoring things at your organization. Do you have the 24/7, 365 coverage to be looking at things? Are we really setting in place, looking at the forward things that are happening? For example, a few years ago, when it was elections here in the United States, everyone was focused on the presidential election here in the United States. However, That year in 2024, there were elections in over 200 countries. So, what could be happening where you have operations across the globe? In my career, I've supported organizations that have had a global footprint in up to 65 countries. So when you're dealing with a large global organization, like when I was at Uber, we operated in 65 countries. So as you can imagine, keeping an eye on what was happening in 65 countries was quite challenging and complex. And therefore, we needed to have that vision to go look to see what was happening and looking at models to try and help us be prepared in the event something was going to happen in many, many, many parts of the world. So figuring out how are you going to be agile in this day and age? And then what do you need to think about for your budget to help you provide some of the tools that you might need? And are you thinking about that as your budget cycle may be kicking off? If you're running a fiscal year of January to February, before you know it, the budget season will be starting. What do you have as an ask in your 2027 budget that might help you and your team be better off? And how are you actually engaging with AI to help you be more resilient at your organization as you make this shift in your mindset? All right, we need to go think about what is the right tools that you need. Now, you might be business resilience, and I'm going to say this also. Part of being a business resilience person is collaborating with many people. You don't need to take all this weight onto your shoulders. You need to collaborate with those at your organization. So, what tools do the monitoring teams have? And by that, I mean your facilities team, your cybersecurity team. How can you plug in to get notices about what's happening? Because I don't expect the business resiliency team to do this, as well as IT. I talk to a lot of people around the globe, and they don't get emails or are on Slack channels or whatever internal communications you are using at your organizations. You, as the business resilience person, should be knowing about what's happening at the buildings, what could potentially happening with a cybersecurity event, what might be happening with the applications that you work on. They need to be plugged in so that they can understand if something is happening, and then how can you also move forward to better prepare for your organization. And therefore, if you're already collaborating with those other areas in your organization, we'll have that better handoff of something when it's happening and can get better prepared for when something actually does happen. And I think the other thing is really asking more from your lines of business. I work at global organizations. I can't know what's going on across the globe, whether it be something local or something regional or something global. I need you to tell me how you are impacted. For example, we had the Olympics a few months ago in Italy. Where might you have had operations in Italy that you might want to be get them prepared if something happened within the 2 weeks of when the games were happening? How could you help prepare for that? I know that the UAE is going to be hosting, or Saudi Arabia is going to be hosting a large sporting event in a few years. Again, how should they get prepared for getting ready if something were to happen? You have that flexibility when it's known events like the Olympics or World Cup, those types of things. So take the beauty of the pre-planning to figure out all the who, what, why, where, when, and how. Because I'm going to tell you, I've done that a lot at companies I've worked at. For example, when the Olympics were taking place, I was able to share with senior leadership over the course of, say, the 16 days that the games were taking place, that if we spent, say, $100,000 to go prepare those lines of business, that I was saving them hypothetically $1 million a day if something had gone wrong. So I think we can all do the math. It's better to say we spent $100,000 to get the lines of businesses ready to prevent losing $16 million. So show the value of what you can do and figure out how you can show the value of early detection, what you can do to help reduce the risk of what might be happening based on how you are able to help mitigate things and get things in place because you had a head start by using those early escalation tools at your organization and really working with everybody to make sure that you are reducing the hemorrhaging of what might be happening when the event starts to unfold. Communication is key. I am still amazed in this day and age with all the tools that we have in organizations that people don't talk to each other. Now, I know it's been a while since I've stepped foot into an office because even at my time at Uber, I was a remote employee. I have pretty much in my career gone into an office, but I pick up the phone and I'm talking to people all around the world. And it's very important to have great working relationships with everybody at your company. And so when people tell me, for example, they might just do business continuity, that they don't talk to the IT people, and I am dumbfounded by that because basically we all rely on IT to help us run, or they don't have good conversations with the communications team or the cybersecurity team. So the one I have of all of you today, or one of many actually, is I talked about the budget, put that down on your to-do list. The other thing is who do you think that you should have a very good working relationship that you might not have? So get some meetings scheduled in the month of May so that you are understanding how to collaborate with them more and figure out where you have vulnerabilities at your organization. Again, what data do you need from those others within your organization? If you feel you need a report on XYZ and you don't have it, figure out how you can get it, how often that data is refreshed, and then how quickly you can get it. Is it going to be out on a SharePoint drive? Where do you need it, and how often do you need to get it refreshed? And make sure that people aren't trying to not want to share that they think that something is happening. Oftentimes, some people will think within a department of like, okay, it's a facilities issue. We're going to take care of it. We've got this. We don't need to worry about anything. But let's face it, if a water sprinkler went off in a building this morning at 2 a.m., do we need to start and think about getting folks ready because it could be a business continuity issue? Do we need to say whether we're opening up the office this morning? Do we need to say, don't come into the office today because we've got water damage? We will keep you updated as to what's happening. Make sure that those communications are taking place and that we all understand how those early escalations can work to make sure that we are going to be able to continue to keep the lights on. Because I've seen it where people make the decision too late. People are already on their way to work, and then they want to make sure that they tell everybody to stay home, and they don't have people available, say, for that first shift for providing impact to servicing the customers, and you have a reduced staff. This can all be taken care of if decisions are made early and we are working together as one in an organization. Okay, also, I'm going to date myself. When I first started my career, how I was communicated is literally I had to wait for a memo to come telling me what we're going to do. And if it was really important, the mailroom was running around with that memo. Today, we have so many modes of communication. What is it that you want to tell your employees? What do you want to tell your clients? Those could be people that pay for your services, a lot of money. The customer, the average person who might do something with you. What do you need to tell your executive team? What do you need to tell your board of directors? Oh, and don't forget the regulators, because when they see something's happening at your organization, they might be knocking on your door, not literally, but inquiring about things. And what's the way you want to handle these things? And if there is a global organization that you're working at, you need to make sure that you understand what are the preferred modes of communication based around the world, because it's not always one and done on how people communicate. And I think the other thing that's really important is you need to make sure that your communications team is also working 24/7, 365. Because, for example, when I got on, joining you from the United States. I was talking to some of the folks on the line, and they were asking me what time it was. Well, it was 2:30 in the morning when I first started to join the Dubai Chambers event. Well, I could have also been online talking about something that was impacting me from a product that I'm buying from elsewhere in the world. If I put something out there that maybe not be accurate or positive, you want to make sure that somebody is going to get out there and correct it. And you want to make sure that maybe you're providing that source of truth because you want to make sure that you're not misleading people. And you also might need to have the quick ability to post another internal website or an external website so that you're reminding folks of what they need to know on how to navigate through your organization's disruption. For example, here in the US, if there's fires, floods, or tornadoes, the insurance companies will have special information on how to help people that need to get insurance claims processed, but might not have everything that they need because their home has been impacted. You want to be the source of truth. And also, don't forget to remind your employees about not saying certain things, whether it be in public, if they go out for dinner tonight, or out on their social media, and then also providing up-to-date information for them on how to tell clients, customers, etc., to get requests from the public to the media, the communications team, excuse me, at your organization. So is it send info@theabccompany.org? What is the email address of how you want to share that information out so that you are the source of truth? It's very important that you are controlling that narrative and that you're providing that right messaging out to your clients, customers, your employees, your board, your leadership team, and the regulators, because that's something that's very hard then to control. Make sure that your communication team has scripts on file that they can use, what the top 10 scenarios are. And if you're working for a global organization, that top 10 is not the same for all regions of the world. So they might need to have whatever those are for each region of the world so that they can have them and then edit them as needed based on the event that they're helping to respond to. All right. So make sure that you are practicing. What are those scenarios that you think are the gotchas that you are not prepared for? It's better to get ahead of them and make sure that you work them out. Because statistically, it's been proven that when an event occurs, people are going to remember 80% of how they need to respond based on the fact that they've actually done a trial run through of it. The 20% is the unknown based on the event that's actually unfolding. And remember not to make everything picture perfect when you do a scenario. You want people to leave an exercise with the hair on the back of their neck standing up just a little bit. You want them to feel a little uncomfortable. You want to remember in this day and age, we never have all the information. You're never going to have all the information. I've never had all the information. So make it challenging for them. And also, if I am the key decision maker, have me participate in the exercise, but then say that I'm on an airplane, I am on holiday, I've just left the organization, maybe. Um, think about all those unknowns because, again, the world is never going to wait for you to have every I dotted, every T crossed. You need to move forward knowing that things are going to be there and making those decisions under pressure and getting people comfortable. I realized this really during COVID that, executive leadership was asking for things here, there, and everywhere. And some people just didn't feel comfortable with the fact that I need this, and here it is, 3:35 in the morning. I need this now. And then we would go get it, and then it would tweak a little bit, and then it would come back and it would change. And by 9 o'clock, we were back to what we were getting asked for at 3:35. But remember, things change and unfold, and you're getting asked to make decisions without a complete set of information. Therefore, make sure the folks who are going to have a seat at your table are able to make decisions without having all those pieces of information and remain calm, cool, and collective while these events are taking place. All right. The other thing is make sure that you are understanding how this is going to work, that your crisis management team, your cybersecurity team, your leadership team is able to make decisions knowing that things are happening very quickly. Not all things are going to be, easy to go work through. People always want to go test for a hurricane here in the United States. I'm like, that's great, but you're going to find out that maybe there's a storm hitting this weekend. Today is Wednesday. You've got time to get ready for it. I need you to be prepared for things that are going to happen like here and now. And also make sure the folks who are going to be doing the communicating at your organization understand what communications training is and that they have had it and that they are working with others to figure it out. Also, we rely a lot on those within our communities to help us. Do we have a good relationship with them? Do you have cybersecurity insurance? If so, do you have a good relationship with the cybersecurity insurance company? Do you understand that they might be able to provide you some additional services at time of the event that could be a cybersecurity event that's unfolding at your organization? How are you going to reach them? What's the contact number for these people? Again, disasters don't happen Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Do you know how to reach your reliable vendors that you're going to need at that time and that you need to pick up the phone and call them in the middle of the night or on the weekend? Understand what that is. And note that there are things that the cybersecurity insurance team can do to help you when an event unfolds. Do you have a good relationship with law enforcement? Because again, depending on if it's a cybersecurity event or you've had a fire, then your organization could be considered a crime scene. A lot of organizations don't think about having those relationships up front and in advance so that when it happens, it's already not the meet and greet and then telling them about what the event is. I can't stress enough on the fact of clear communication. Um, I worked at one organization where we had a cybersecurity event. We knew who the chief information security officer was. They didn't really communicate much to us. And when we had a major event, they were communicating to us and they were literally telling us things that you hear not to do. I'm going to send you this link, click on this, do that. We were a Google shop, and all of a sudden it's like, we want you to go use another platform. And it was like, you know, the phones and emails were insane as to how much communication we got because it was bad information and not clearly articulated to the staff. So we created our own internal disaster by not knowing that the fact that this is how it was going to be. I also recommend that when you are doing things at your organization or you see things from your competitors, save them, use them for your simulations on how to go inject things into your organization for when you're doing your practice runs. All right. Think about all the different types of risks that can be out there that you need to think about. Your to-do list also is think about the risks that you have and think about the future risks that could be there, whether it be construction, whether it be a world event or a new office building. What is it that you think are the concerns that, again, remember, anybody says that can't happen to us, that's what you want to go exercise. Think about what you need to do. Think about testing and exercising for all those unknowns, strengthening your communication. What do you need to do to make your organization much more resilient? And with that, I am ready to take some questions now, Richard. I know that we might need to move on to others, so if we need to take those later on, I'm happy to. I will be still here if there's time at the end. I'll let you tell me what's next.
Yep, we will move on to our next speaker. And those questions in the chat, thank you for sending those through, everybody. We'll make sure we get all of those answered for you and send all that through in a follow-up for the next session. So thank you so much, Margaret. We really appreciate you sharing your expertise with the audience here today. Our next speaker is a remarkable example of entrepreneurial vision and resilient leadership. Mohammed Hussery founded UAS International Trip Support at the age of just 21 and has since grown it into a global powerhouse with headquarters on 4 continents and a presence in 31 international locations. He is executive president of UAS, a board member of the Middle East Business Aviation Association, a graduate of the Owner President Management Program at Harvard Business School, and the recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Sapphire Pegasus Business Aviation Awards. Recognized in Forbes Middle East and named in the NBAA Top 40 Under 40, Mohammed is one of the most authoritative voices on operational resilience, global expansion, and leadership under pressure. His session will draw on decades of navigating turbulence in one of the world's most demanding industries, aviation. Pardon the pun for the turbulence. Please welcome Mohammed Hussery.
Thank you very much, Richard. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining this session. I would like to start by saying that Dubai is really a story of success and resilience. And it took me only one visit to Dubai for the first time in my life in year 2000 to realize that I need to move my startup here to Dubai and set up my global headquarters here, because my vision at that time for my company is exactly the same vision that Dubai had for its growth for the future. So I hope this session will offer you some experience, because I operate in 2 main industries. One is the aviation, which is often offers the best model for resilience because of how fast it get affected when disruption happens. And the second industry is the workplace well-being, which offers another domain or aspects to how resilience is built in organizations. So the first point I would like to start is saying that disruption is no longer episodic, it's structured. So Richard earlier mentioned all those different disruptions that happened since 2001 and until now, recently. And if you look elsewhere also around the world, you see disruption happening all over. So it's not episodic anymore. It's become a business norm to have this kind of disruptions. So you can see the reasons for that are because there are geopolitical volatilities, there is supply chain instability, rising customer expectations with how fast the technology is moving and the demand of the customers are moving, faster decision cycles, greater pressure for continuity, trust. So all these elements make us feel like today we are operating in an environment that demands this new definition of resilience. So it's no longer an optional, it's a core business capability. Now, aviation, as I said earlier, is one of the clearest tests of resilience because disruption is immediate and it's visible and it is expensive, as you all, I'm sure, have witnessed recently. A single disruption affects both different elements such as routing, costs, customer experience, timing, and coordination. And this is why aviation offers the clearest model of resilience. Now, despite what happened in the recent regional crisis, aviation still here in the Middle East offering the biggest potential for growth. So according to the IATA statistics, this year, aviation in the Middle East will be the biggest profitable in the region here. And this basically is due to many reasons that we are going to explore soon now because of what the region offers in terms of resilience. Okay, so what do resilient organizations do differently so that they can really build on those resilient? There are 4 core elements I consider necessary, which are by order: the visibility, which means that a real-time awareness of what is changing. If we cannot really have a real-time data and analysis and knowledge about what's happening, we will not have enough visibility to take decisions. Then the second element becomes the decision speed. How fast and how dynamic is the leadership in such organization or such governmental entity or whatever the organizational structure is? How dynamic is the leadership to take decisions and do shifts as quickly as possible? Then we move to the third important element, which is the execution discipline. The execution is very important because oftentimes we see directions are clear, but the execution is not happening in the same manner, so it doesn't lead to the intended outcome. And then the fourth element, which also very important, is the network strength. How strong is your network as an organization of partners, customers, and your support network that can really hold and make your resilient organization? So the takeaway here is resilient is designed. It is not something that happened casually. Dubai is a real big model of resilience by design, and it offers all of those elements. And it is the reason why many companies around the world choose Dubai for their own headquarters, and my company included. I knew that these elements are really what's going to help me and all other businesses to build a long-term resilient organization. These are world-class infrastructures because we see how it holds and how it serves despite the different disruption that happened. The regulatory agility, we see the leadership of this country is always responding with favorable regulations and laws and legislations that encourage and promote business continuity and growth. We see the global connectivity. We are very privileged in this part of the world because we are connected to all continents and all markets. The long-term investment thinking. I always was surprised myself when I first came to Dubai of the size and the vision of the projects and the futuristic outlook of projects. It's built for the future. It's not built for today. It's built for the long-term future, actually, not only for the future, the long-term future. So this is really a key fundamental element in Dubai's model for resilience. Public-private collaboration also I see as a big important point here, because we see with the semi-government companies, we see the collaborations and the strategic partnership between public and private sector. It's also boost the resilience model of Dubai. So Dubai shows what is possible when resilience is embedded in the system, in the infrastructure, not introduced only in times of stress. Now, the second part is that I see important for resilience is not basically about operational resilience, because it's only one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is human performance. And this is what brings me to the second element, which I consider important for building resilient organization, which is workplace well-being, employee well-being. This is very important element, and unfortunately, in our region, it has not been really valued as opposed to other parts of the world, unfortunately. And this is what we are working on improving and promoting, because when disruption happens, the pressure cascades down from systems down to human and start demonstrate in fatigue affects judgment, and it's stress affects communication, uncertainty affects focus, overload affects consistency. And that's why it is very important to focus on this part of the equation when building a resilient organization. According to the World Health Organization, 15% of working age adults are living with a mental disorder, and 12 billion working days are lost every year to depression, anxiety, which cost the global economy $1 trillion annually in lost productivity. So this is where well-being becomes really a strategic imperative. It is not a perk. Unfortunately, in this part of the region, some organizations sees workplace well-being as a perk. So, but they don't see it as a business necessity or a strategic objective. I remember back in the days when I started building my company and started facing the early signs of crisis, the first few crises that happened here. I started looking after my employees' well-being, because I realized building a resilient company, depending on the people that runs this business, the people that supports this business. So as I took care of my employees' well-being, engagement rates have been raised, retention rates have improved, absenteeism has decreased, and so many elements that really has improved, which are business performance metrics as a result of really taking care of employees' well-being. Focus, energy, adaptability, engagement, all of these metrics have improved as I took care of my team. So it's really become a win-win situation to do that. According to Gallup, latest results, there is $8.9 trillion is the global economy lose for low employee engagement. So engagement is really an important element. And all of us as business leaders, we're looking for that engaged employees that really work hard and treat our businesses like their own. But that comes at a cost. The cost is very simple. You just take care of them and they take care of you and your business. So what leaders should consider in doing so, the problem is that there's a misconception about workplace well-being here, that if as a business leader I offer my employees well-being, that means they will work less. I have to let them away from pressure and all of that, and my business will be affected. All these are misconceptions about workplace well-being. True well-being is that you are the continuity and the ability to perform and adapt under pressure. So you are building resilience of your people when you are really taking care of them. You're not gonna lose in productivity or lose in ROI. There is always a lot of evidence, a lot of research that supports the ROI when you invest in your people, that it comes back to your business in terms of profit. There is now a globally war on talent, and the new generation of professional talents are favoring those leaders who offer and take care of their well-being. It's no longer salary first. Salary, of course, is important, but new generation of talents are asking many questions, asking if well-being in this organization I'm joining is sustainable, is part of the culture. Because it's no longer the question that, am I going to be successful in this organization? The question now becomes, am I going to sustain success in this organization? And to sustain success, new talents are looking for those employers that are favoring and looking after their employees' well-being as part of their culture. So how do we do that? Of course, it has to be demonstrated in the leadership behavior, in the daily routine and habits, in the connections between the team and the management, in balancing the workload, in empowering managers. Managers are really one of the most key important elements and the most important layers in the hierarchy or the structure of the operations. So training your manager to be able to spot out signals like burnout, to be able to support their team's well-being, to be able to really encourage this culture of well-being is what will make or break an effective well-being strategy. So looking at well-being in this region, some companies they vary between the level of their workplace well-being. Some of them are in the awareness stage, some of them are advanced, and we have fortunately enough very good examples in the region here and in Dubai about organizations that are really advanced in how they really take care of their employees. They embed the workplace well-being in the culture of the organization. So it's become something natural for leadership, for employees to really practice every day. The majority of businesses here, they think workplace well-being or wellness is the responsibility of the insurance company. And the insurance company sees this as a complementary but not core service. That's why when delivering workplace well-being or wellness through insurance, it's often like not very effective, because the insurance company sees that as a cost burden and it's not their core services. On the other side, companies or HR leaders, when they want to invest in well-being because they truly know how it should be, they are faced with some resistance related to budget or why should we do it? It should be the insurance. It's not a priority. So there is a lot of education needs to happen here in the region about the importance and the strategic imperative for workplace well-being in building a resilient organization. Because often in times of disruption, it is your own people that really protect the business and ring fence it against any changes or sudden declines. So, of course, many companies, they are concerned about the ROI, or we are doing some initiatives, but we're not seeing a real retention. We're not seeing a real return on investment. We need to quantify how do we make benefit out of these workplace well-being initiatives. So I realized there's a gap in the market, and based on my experience, I have decided to turn this into a business. So I founded VWell, which is company specialized in workplace well-being, and it's based on technology and in-person experience. Blending both technology and in-person experience is very important because initiatives that are happen in person are good, but they lack measurement. Companies and employer cannot measure the impact, and technology apps and platforms alone also cannot offer the engagement level that every employer is looking for. That's why we've built VWell based on an O2O strategy, online to offline, to empower businesses in the region to be able to measure the impact and the ROI of well-being. And there has been a lot of great case studies about companies who really implement these kinds of initiatives, that they really show the ROI. They're able to measure the ROI and track business performance metrics such as employee retention, employee engagement, absenteeism, healthcare cost. Recently, Abu Dhabi Department of Health also endorsed and encouraged and issued a policy mandating healthcare sectors to have a workplace well-being initiative for their workforce, and to be able to track and measure those business performance metrics and to show an impact on people's positive impact on people's health and well-being. So there's a very good tailwind from the government directions pushing towards more encouragement for workplace well-being as it's become a business necessity, especially in situations like what we are experiencing recently, where as business leaders, we need to attract a lot of professional expats from outside. We need to restore and improve on the business performance to recover from all of these recent declines. So this is really becoming a top priority for businesses nowadays. I think the final word, I don't want to take too much. I'll allow more for question and answer. The strongest organization build both operation resilience and human resilience. We cannot, as organization or as leaders, depend on one. These are the two wings of a resilient organizations. You have to have both, and both offers really the strongest and the most resilient organization. So I want to thank you everyone for attending this session, and I hope there was a lot of benefit for it. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Really appreciate it. We've got time for just a very, very quick couple of minutes on a question. I wanted to take one actually from the last session, which was all about how do we look after our employees in times of disruption. Obviously, being a well-being expert as well, I wanted to pose that to you. Obviously, a lot of parents have been struggling trying to balance work and the kids not being at school in Dubai and the UAE recently. How can, just very quickly, how can leaders look after their employees and make sure that they're comfortable in these times of disruption?
Yes, thank you. That's a very important question. So companies and organizations that really have an effective well-being strategy will respond in their hybrid working model, in offering flexibility for their team, in empowering them to work remotely in cases like that. Because really, as parents, we struggle with kids at home. We want to attend to them. And at the same time, it's very impossible for us if we are working physically. So I think part of the well-being strategy is the working structure and the model, and empowering and training teams of how to work remotely in cases like that. This become a mandatory. It's not something like an optional or a perk again. It's really something important to have. Before COVID, we were not used to working remotely. During COVID, everyone completely worked remotely. But later, when COVID cleared, everyone was longing to go back to office because they need that human interaction. So the best sweet spot is a hybrid model, is really having this flexibility to come to the office, socialize, and benefit also, and group as a team, and also have the flexibility to attend to other needs that are necessary so you stay engaged with your organization.
Mohammed, thank you so much. That's all we've got time for. We really appreciate you sharing your insights. If we didn't get round to any of the questions, we will make sure that we get those sent over to you in the email following up from the session. Thank you so much, Mohammed.
Thank you.
Our third and final speaker today is a seasoned business leader whose work sits at the intersection of strategy, risk, and operational excellence. Dr. Mohaned Abdelkader holds a doctorate in business administration with a specialization in risk management and brings over 17 years of experience across Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and India. In his current role at BSI, he oversees a portfolio exceeding £100 million and leads a diverse, high-performing team across multiple regions. His research into risk attitudes within the UAE's construction sector has directly informed his leadership philosophy, one that balances calculated risk-taking with structured governance. Dr. Mohaned will close our speaker program with a session on transforming uncertainty into strategic opportunity. Please welcome Dr. Mohaned Abdelkader. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and I'm very pleased to be part of this insightful event or webinar on resilience, and it's a topic that is very close to my heart. I can speak for hours about it, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to adapt to the flow of information that came from my colleague speakers and try to build on information, not to repeat information, being the third one in sequence, to add the right value to the dear attendees. So I understand that whoever is listening to us this morning is, or now this afternoon, Dubai time, they come from different sizes of organizations. They can be from government, semi-government, private sector, SMEs, large organizations, regional, local, global, etc. And appreciating that, I want to start by saying that we will look at any organization as an organization. So when we say organization, we can address the whole globe as an organization, and we can address a country as an organization, and we can address a company, if it's private or government, etc., as an organization. So when we say organization, we cover everything. I'll start by going to the implications of uncertainty or the disruption event, and specifically the conflict that is currently ongoing, if I may say, in the region, and that has, of course, sequential effects and implications to the whole world, of course. Being here in the United Arab Emirates and working for an organization, a global organization, I would say that we have managed to turn challenges into opportunities. First, to speak about BSI, where if I recall the introduction of Richard and later on the colleague speakers, you mentioned the previous events of COVID, financial crisis, etc. I can tell you, like off the top of my head, that we are celebrating the 125th year anniversary of BSI this month, and specifically on 26th of April. So it was like last weekend. And I was struck with a piece of information that we supported the efforts of World War II management by developing more than 400 standards related to emergency management. And this is something that could create more impact for us in the market, enhance our reputation, etc. And even we made financial growth, and it was double-digit growth during the COVID period, because we, in our product certification business, we focused on PPEs and masks and related products. So I think there is a comment about the slide. So if we can move to the next slide, please, so we can, yeah. So after, why I'm mentioning this, because I have witnessed a real conversion of challenges into opportunities when the organization, and within UAE as a country, if I may say, and I will touch base on that. But first, let me tell you in general what are the disruption implications and how we can think generally. It might look theoretical at this stage, but then later on we can link the dots. So for the supply routes, and I think everybody nowadays is watching the news, and we are more interested about specific news than any time before, specifically on the Hormuz Strait and how that impacted the world trade and the supply chain globally, regardless of the industry that you work for, regardless of where you are, even as an end user or as a consumer, we are all impacted with either shortage of supply in some of the countries, price increase in other countries, etc. And we know that some places were impacted less because of the better resilience that they have. I'm speaking here about country, region, and organization levels if we go to a smaller scale. Rethinking supply chain is looking for alternatives. And of course, the supply routes currently are impacted. And I saw that Margaret mentioned about the Suez Canal disruption that happened recently. And how that impacted the supply chain and what actions were taken after that and the considerations that were taken later. And now today, we can see that there are considerations on different routes that are alternative than the current world trade paths or routes that the world is using. So if we move to the next one, and it is on fuel prices, and I think it's very much straightforward. Now, if it will look like, I don't want to call it like a cliche, but it look like very theoretical to say that, okay, leverage energy market shifts and go for solar, etc. It sounds very theoretical, and it sounds that, okay, I need time, I need investments, I need space, I need more sun in some of the countries. But it is important to think inside the box sometimes, because we have seen incidents or cases where we said that, well, this needs time, and time takes time, and we don't start, but then years pass and time passes and nothing happens, and we say that if we have started before, we would have been in a better position today. That's why we need to think, of course, when we respond to a crisis or to an emergency, we need to think short term for our immediate response, but at the same time, we need to look at medium and long term actions to mitigate the impact of the same event happening again in the future. For the next one, can you go to the next slide, please? Yes, so for government regulations, and again, from the previous speeches, it was mentioned that sometimes the regulators will knock at our doors, and I mentioned something related to our experience during COVID, in which we were ready, and it links very well to the next point about technology. We were ready with tools that we never gave attention to, that gave us resilience, and we were very agile to adapt very fast to the COVID implications during that time in early 2020, when it started to hit badly, and when we started to have the lockdowns. We had systems that, if you remember, I think everybody was in the same position where we rarely used to have remote meetings. I remember at some point in time we used to use the phone to dial in some of the Zoom calls or other platforms, or sometimes use phone calls to link offices together or to speak about something. But mostly we used to travel to meet. We started to have an infrastructure of meetings that we leveraged. So it's not like we are expecting a disruption, so we had that, but it was part of our resilience ecosystem, and it was part of the measures that were considered for our readiness to such disruption. That's why we could switch within the same less than a month, within 2 weeks, we could switch from face-to-face delivery to remote delivery. And I'll mention something very interesting, that recently, when the disruption in the Middle East started, and that was end of Feb, we gathered for like a crisis group call, and I had a question from one of the group leadership team members. He asked me, if we go back tomorrow to on-site work, how quickly, if the situation restarts or if attacks continues, how quickly we can switch back to remote? I told him, well, it's going to take us around like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, which is like totally okay. I mean, they were surprised, and I was taking it for granted. I didn't even feel that it is something that we should be proud of, because after the experience of COVID, it took us 2 weeks to switch to remote because we had some regulatory and accreditation restrictions, and we had to influence accreditation to adapt fast to these changes. But now, because it's allowed and it fast-tracked, and it links it to this point very well, it fast-tracked the adoption of the hybrid delivery model of audits and trainings. We could reach to a position where we can, in 20 minutes or 30 minutes, we can switch from a mode of delivery to another. And why we need that time? Because we just need to communicate to the right stakeholders. That's it. Not because we need to prepare any system, so we need to get ready for it. We have processes in place and systems in place that support us to do that. Definitely, now we can take it to the next level by looking at what we can do to leverage AI tools and what we can do to leverage the, I wouldn't call it digital transformation, but even the definition of digital transformation today is more into AI than digital transformation itself. So we're talking about something that is done physically and or manual, and we are going into digital. We are more into digital, into more advanced digital nowadays, as you are very much aware of. And the next one is on customer demand, and it was mentioned by my colleagues. And I don't want to put a lot of emphasis here, but I link it to the overall picture later on in a few minutes, where definitely. And I wouldn't say in the UAE, because I didn't, like, as a consumer, I didn't notice there is like a big problem or big impact on the prices or that, thank God. And I will link that when we speak about leadership and how that will help in cultivating the right culture and being more resilient as a country and as an organization. This thing is, of course, we're speaking in general. We will have like a different customer demand. Consumer behavior is proven to go to more enduring crises, especially like the one that we have been going through, to more essential buying than non-essential buying. So that can create opportunities for marketing and better promotions for the non-essential products, and of course that can be turned into an opportunity then. And I think if we move to the next slide, so we can like think in a nutshell and how we can look at these things and turn them into opportunities at different levels. I would say first, quoting from Tina Sealing, a scholar and educator in Stanford University, that uncertainty is the essence of life and it fuels opportunity. How that can be realistic when we look at these challenges and have the right, and I'm also referring back to Mohammed's great comment on well-being, because this is something that I totally believe in. When you have the right organizational culture, when you have the right environment for innovation, the right environment for people to be less stressful during times of disruption, you will get ideas, you will get productivity minimum as usual, or it can be even better, because people will appreciate that they are operating in a positive environment, and they will even excel better than the times of business as usual. And I would say here a big example of that is the UAE. I recall during the COVID time, the famous and very strong statement that came from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, لا تشيلون هم, when he was asked about the supply of the strategic products for consumers in the UAE, which translates to don't concern yourself or don't worry about it. And that was proven, because I'm here for the last, I was there that time, and I was here for the last 18 years almost. And I saw that we really didn't have to concern ourselves. Linking that to what's happening now, when His Excellency Yusuf Al Utaiba was asked, the ambassador of the UAE in USA was asked about the financial impact of the conflict on UAE, he simply said with confidence that UAE has a resilient economy. And what made me believe that without questioning it and feeling more comfortable and be very I bought that with 100% belief. Why? Because of the Bachelunham statement that proved that these statements came from solid leadership and they are true. So the point I'm trying to make here is that if you look at UAE as an organization or as a role model organization, and we see how they created that trust and they proved it. When they say something, they proved it during that conflict, and it was already we were receiving phone alerts. I saw videos of the leadership of Sheikh Hamad bin Zayed and Sheikh Hamad bin Rashid even. They were both walking in malls in open areas, and that was a strong message that they're leading from the front. What does that tell us? It tells us that if you want to be resilient, of course, you need to look at predict the unpredictable, look for scenario-based thinking, and be ready for the things that the crises that you identify that will have direct impact to your business and the rest of the implications that you have, etc. But the constant here and what works for everybody, regardless if you are into production, service provision, if you are a government organization, not a non-profit organization, even for your family, as a leader in your family, or even with the influence and impact you make to the surroundings, to your surroundings, for any place, what matters most is trust and to cultivate the right seeds for a positive culture. And this links very well to what Muhammad said about well-being and about how that impacts the effectiveness of resilience-related actions during time of disruption.
Thank you.
I would wrap it up with that statement. But I would say at the end, after opening to questions, that if you want to look at it from leadership perspective, remember that you have to stay consistent and predictable in values. So if your organization claims that they are people-oriented, if they prioritize health, safety, and well-being, do not compromise that at any cost. So you can keep the trust level at the right level, and stay where you are in a position that will make people well-being better, and the stakeholders will respond effectively to whatever communication or actions you take. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed, for your fantastic presentation. We've got a question here. What type of systems need to be put in place for organizations to be more resilient?
Definitely, it depends on the organization, because now resilience in general is I'm ready for the unpredictable, and I want to mitigate the adverse impact of disruptions on my business and on the health, safety, and well-being of my employees, and to avoid any negative implication, or at least mitigate that or reduce it. So it depends on the organization, definitely. But what I would say is that I will repeat myself here. The constant measure is having the right culture in place, is create the right work environment for employees, is to make sure that we operate in a positive place where, and here I'll give an example that happened to us here for the local leadership team in the Middle East, where no matter what function you take care of, no matter where you stand in the hierarchy, in no time we were in a call together. We don't we don't mind at all who makes the call or who does it, as long as it falls or it follows our direction and our main objective of protecting the health, safety, and well-being of our colleagues, and make sure that our business continues as usual as possible during the unusual time.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohanad. Really appreciate you taking the time today to speak to the audience. Thank you for your session.
With pleasure. Thank you.
We have just a couple of minutes left, and I just want to quickly jump back to Margaret, if Margaret, you're still available. We did have a question that I wanted to field to you just in the last couple of minutes that we have. One of the questions was all about calculating the ROI of resilience investments. Obviously, these disruptions, they're not predictable. So how can companies calculate that ROI?
Great question. And it's one that many organizations struggle with. So this is where I find I become a detective. I am scouring to find out how much information is available, whether it's working with the chief financial officer, if it's a publicly traded company, is there information that's published in there that you can extract out? So say, for example, a line of business reports that they earn $365 million. Well, then you can tell there's the $1 million a day. Also, don't forget to look at your business impact analysis. There may be information in there that you can extract out from. And if nothing else, then just have a meeting with that line of business that's been impacted and ask some fundamental questions of like, do you have information about what you earn per day or how much you might be bringing in or what things are? Because I look at it this way, it is peeling back and figuring out how to get that information. It is there, but sometimes people struggle with it, but then they can actually over anticipate what they're doing. I've also used the BIA to share with the IT folks, or sometimes if there's been an IT outage, they'll say to the CTO, like, we lost $1 million. And then they're going to the leadership team and then saying other things. And then when I go back and look at the business impact analysis, they would say hypothetically that they were only going to lose $10,000. So have some of these tough discussions in advance to have this set out. Oftentimes you can back into getting that data. It's just a lot of digging and finding out what you can and cannot do. But your CFO, whether it be the chief financial officer or your financial person for your division within your organization, should help you put some of that together.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thanks for sticking
You're
around
welcome.
with that question. That is all we have time for today. As mentioned, if you would like to receive a certificate of attendance today, please complete the survey by scanning the QR code on the screen now. We really appreciate all of you for joining us today, taking time out of your busy schedules to join us, and a huge thank you to our 3 speakers. All of those insights were absolutely fantastic. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and expertise with the audience. So once again, if you can scan the QR code, please answer the survey. Your feedback really does mean a lot to us. It means that we can help put on more events just like we have today for you. And please keep an eye on communications for the next session, which will be coming up very shortly. Thanks once again for joining us. We hope you have a fantastic day, and we will see you all again soon. Thank you very much.